Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. I got an email from No Spam, subject line, Meteor over New York shakes ground. And in the email, hi Jared, I know you always look for weather-related events and unusual activity. I think this may be of interest to you. Enjoy. And then they provide a link. We'll look at that in just a minute. Thank you, No Spam. I love the name, by the way. I also got a text from Mindy with Temple of Jesus channel. She's going to be putting out some new videos pretty soon. She's the one that has the video about only 2 things left before the second coming. I'll put a link for that in the description box below, but make sure to subscribe to her. So thank you both. And yeah, this does interest me because I feel like it's an American specific sign, and there's also a Jewish component to it. So let's remind ourselves really quick. I have this spreadsheet called Signs United States, where I'm keeping track of what I feel are United States specific signs. And up until this point, we've already had a couple signs that have involved the Statue of Liberty. On April 3rd, which was 3 days before General Conference, and it was also the 188th anniversary of the appearances of Christ, Moses, Elias, Elijah in the Kirtland Temple, there was a lightning bolt that struck the Statue of Liberty, and it was caught on camera. So lightning, is always hitting tall structures like the Statue of Liberty. But when it's caught on camera and when it captures people's attention and it's dramatic looking, a message can be sent through that, which is why I feel like it can be a sign. Not because it's inexplicable or it's never happened before or we understand the phenomena. It's the fact that it happens at a certain time in a certain way. It has a certain look that could cause you to think certain things. In this case, that it's a sign for the United States. Just 2 days after that, interestingly, which was 1 day before General Conference, April 5th, there was a rare 4.8 magnitude earthquake near White House Station, New Jersey, which was felt in New York City, and specifically, it shook the Statue of Liberty. We've covered this before, and I'm not the only one that's taken note of this. You have this article from AccuWeather where they're talking about this lightning strike. And then later on, they have the video of the earthquake shaking the Statue of Liberty. Okay. So this kind of stuff can put things in people's minds and therefore be a sign. The point of a sign is to send a message from the Lord to the people that are observing the sign and that have eyes to see and ears to hear. So that was 2 signs right in a row. And so that's why this email and message from Mindy interested me, because it seems like the Statue of Liberty is having a pretty bad year. First lightning, and then an earthquake, and now a meteor that shook it. Okay, strange. So let's take a look at this post on X. This is from New York Post. Initially, they thought that this was the trajectory, which went right over the Statue of Liberty. Okay. It's changed since that time. I'll show you, but I still feel like it is related to the Statue of Liberty and then just New York City in general, which is good enough for me. There's this interesting interview of Judah Bergman. You can tell he's a Jew. He's wearing a kippah. He's being interviewed by NBC4 New York. So he observed it, or he felt it. This was a daytime meteor. And so it's just interesting that you have already in this interview this Jewish component to it. But there's actually more. There's more than just this. This just happened to be the case that they interviewed this Jewish man. Okay, there were a bunch of articles that came out initially. This is the This is the Guardian. Meteor thought to have exploded over Midtown Manhattan, NASA says. Space Agency says probable meteor passed over Statue of Liberty before disintegrating 29 miles above city. Then you have Live Science. Rare daylight fireball meteor over New York City created loud boom near Statue of Liberty. Okay. And then we've had a few more recent articles that have been put out. This is NBC for New York. NASA updates meteor over New York City track, saying it originated over the city, then moved west over New Jersey. So let's go back and look at that initial trajectory, which was like completely opposite. They had it moving northeast, basically from west to east, south to north over New York City, but it was actually opposite. But still, in a similar location. They've tweaked it a little bit, and it's a little bit more accurate now. And I'll show you that in just a minute. Okay, the path of the meteor that passed over New York City Tuesday morning, so that was yesterday. Well, I'm recording this on the 17th, so it was yesterday for me, has been updated by NASA. The space agency now says the meteor originated over New York City and moved west into New Jersey. It also upgraded the speed of the meteor to 38,000 miles per hour. The American Meteor Society received a number of reports of people seeing a fireball in the sky around 11:17 a.m. Pay attention to that time. This year, we've been talking a lot about the number 11, like these double numbers, 11, 22, 33, stuff like that. And for a couple years now, we've been talking about 17 because President Nelson is the 17th president of the church. I think it was the I think it was like the April 2022 General Conference where he announced 17 temples to complete 100 that he himself had announced as president of the church. So 17 to complete 100. In that same conference, he shared a poem that he had shared 17 years earlier when he was in the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. And his main talk of that conference was exactly 17 minutes and 17 seconds. So, and there were other things. So we've talked a lot about 17. 17 is 10 plus 7. Both of those are numbers of completion, perfection, whatever. It's you can either times them together and get 70, or you can add them together and get 17. But anyway, just remember this. Not just, when thinking about President Nelson, but there's going to be this Jewish component, which I'll share in just a minute. Okay, 11:17. Tuesday. In addition, a number of residents across New York and New Jersey said they felt shaking like an earthquake, and another says they thought they heard thunder. Some of the reports included parts of northern New Jersey, Brooklyn, and Queens. Quote, "You have to have one bright enough, and it has to be right over New York to get all that attention." So again, for me, that by itself is good enough to be a sign. New York City is one of the main cities in the United States. It's where you have the headquarters of the UN. It's, basically the financial capital of the United States. It's a cultural center, not just for the United States, but for the world. It's an important city. So that by itself is interesting. But anyway, he continues, daytime fireballs are fairly rare, and New Yorkers got to see one this morning, said Bill Cook from NASA's Meteoroid Environment Office. Okay, so according to him, this is rare. Here's the updated trajectory. Okay, so it doesn't go over where the Statue of Liberty is. Let's go to the American Meteor Society. They have these reports. You can report if you saw a fireball, and then they take your location. You do a report, and then they put it on this map. And so I guess here are all the reports that they've received so far, and they have all the little figures here pointing which way they were facing when they saw it. And so let's zoom in. Okay, so here's Manhattan. Here's Midtown Manhattan, or basically this is like downtown New York. You could think of it, Lower Manhattan right there. And then over here, Liberty Island, this is where the Statue of Liberty is, right here. Okay, so the initial projection or the initial trajectory was right over that island, but now it's more up here. I still think it's significant because it was felt in New York City. They felt a shaking. They heard a boom. They had a rare daytime meteor that they saw. Oh, and it looks like there's some videos. I was looking on X to see if there were videos, but I didn't see any. So you can check those out. I'll put a link for this in the description box below. So here's the update, but let's go ahead and go back here. The American Meteor Society website does show around 20 fireball reports across New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut, with additional reports in Delaware, Pennsylvania, and Maryland during that time frame. NASA originally said, as a result of the reports, it was able to come up with a quote-unquote very crude determination of the trajectory of the meteor. The fireball was first sighted over New York Harbor moving 34,000 miles per hour before it descended at a steep angle, NASA said. The space agency said it estimates the meteor passed over the Statue of Liberty before disintegrating 29 miles above Midtown Manhattan. The agency updated that track later Tuesday after receiving more eyewitness accounts. Okay, later on in this article, some eyewitnesses said they thought they saw it chart a course directly over the Statue of Liberty. But NASA said with only 15 documented witnesses, its path is not 100% certain. So, I mean, the best that you can do is try and get as many accounts as you can. But even with all those different accounts, I don't think it's really possible to, like NASA said, get it to 100%. So maybe it did pass over the Statue of Liberty. Who knows? Maybe we'll find that out after this life. But whatever the case, it was seen in New York City. It shook the city. There was a loud boom that was heard. So I'm taking note of that. But let's continue. NBC New York called the Department of Defense to see if any military aircraft or exercises could have been responsible. A press officer at the Pentagon said that they were not tracking anything that could be responsible for the reports. So the Pentagon says, no, not that we know of. And then North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, tells NBC New York it too was not tracking any activity that could account for what residents felt. Okay, so they checked with the Pentagon, they checked with NORAD. Nope, not that we know of. NASA said, quote, there are reports of military in the vicinity around the time of the fireball, which could explain the shaking and sounds reported to the media, end quote. The FAA said only a military aircraft could be responsible for any sonic booms and referred NBC New York to the military. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't think that it was military just based on what we just read, but who knows? And then Fox 5 New York says Meteor earthquake uncovering why New Jersey, New York City felt shaking Tuesday. And in this article, it says no evidence of an earthquake, according to the USGS. In a statement to Fox 5 New York, the U.S. Geological Survey said it received reports of shaking in northern New Jersey and Staten Island and examined seismic data in the area. Quote, the USGS has no direct evidence of the source of the shaking. Past reports of shaking with no associated seismic signal have had atmospheric origins such as sonic booms or weather-related phenomena, the statement said. Multiple users on social media reported feeling shakes in parts of New Jersey and New York City around 11 a.m. Tuesday morning. Quote, did New Jersey just have another quake? My house was just shaking, one user wrote on X. So let's pause here and let's think about this. If you're, this person or others where you just recently, when was it again? It was in April. In April on the 5th, that's when they had this rare earthquake. So imagine experiencing this. You're not used to feeling earthquakes, or at least not earthquakes that strong, right? You see all this news about the Statue of Liberty. A couple months go by and you think everything's good. And then you have another shaking of where you live. So this is probably waking some people up, probably giving some people signs, not everybody. But for those that are in tune and have eyes to see, ears to hear, it's probably sending a message. So, all right, let's continue. Some reported hearing a loud boom sound along with shaking. Other users on X said they felt shakes in their homes and offices. Similar reports were shared on Facebook and Reddit. NorthJersey.com reported. Another user wrote, quote, earthquake felt in New York City, just felt shaking over in southern Queens. Can someone confirm? Hearing epicenter may be out of New Jersey. All right, so something definitely happened. It affected a lot of people. A lot of people heard it, felt it. Some people saw it. Some people saw it go over the Statue of Liberty. So it's catching a lot of people's attention. Okay, now I put it on my spreadsheet, and you'll notice that I have this column D for significant days. We already went over the significant days or time frames of those two previous Statue of Liberty incidents. Well, it turns out that this one comes at an interesting time as well. Okay, so let's look at the Hebrew calendar. This is hebcal.com, where you can see our calendar and the Hebrew calendar overlaid. So this happened on the 16th, Tuesday, the 16th, and that was 1 week before Tzom Tammuz. What is that? Well, I didn't know either. I've been looking into a lot of Jewish things over the course of my channel, but I have not yet, until now, come across what Tzom Tammuz is. Okay, so it's a fast commemorating breaching of the walls of Jerusalem before the destruction of the Second Temple. All right, well, that doesn't sound too good. You know, if the timing of this event goes along with this and what it means, the breaching of the walls of Jerusalem before the destruction of the Second Temple. Let me remind you of something. It's been a while since we've looked at this, but I noticed like a couple years ago how the United States is kind of, in a way, set up like the camp of Israel. When Israel was wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, whenever they camped in this order, according to tribe. When they marched, there was an order of march where you had like these same groups of three. You have 4 groups of 3 tribes, and each tribe has like a leader tribe. So this group of 3, the leader would be Judah. This group of 3, it would be Ephraim. This group of 3, it'd be Reuben. This one up here would be Dan, right? So whenever they were camped, this is how they camped. The tabernacle would be in the center, Judah directly to the east, Ephraim directly to the west. So if you make this gigantic camp of Israel out of the United States, one thing that's really interesting is you'll notice that the tabernacle pretty much corresponds with the Kansas City area, which is where the New Jerusalem is going to be. It's going to be one of the 2 world capitals during the millennium, right? It's also interesting to note that when you go east to the eastern part of the state of Missouri, that's where you have St. Louis. And St. Louis has the Gateway Arch. It's the gateway to the west, right? It's like a big portal, like a symbolic portal to if you're going to the western United States. So that's roughly like how I have it set up here. It's almost like at the front of the tabernacle. Well, we all know that the church is headquartered in Utah, and especially in the United States, maybe not so much outside the United States, but in the United States, the majority of church members are from Ephraim, and many of them are in Utah, right? But we also have Manasseh with us as well. And we do have the other tribes. I have my spreadsheet. Gosh, every time I never plan on pulling this up. Let's go ahead and do it. I have a not a spreadsheet, but an anonymous poll that's called "What Tribe Are You From?" Looks like I have a few new responses from people. 1,442 responses. It's an anonymous poll. What tribe are you from according to your patriarchal blessing? And this is the breakdown. This is only representative of my audience, which everyone speaks English or understands English at the very least. It may not be your primary or your first language, but this doesn't represent the entire church, of course. But this is what we have. The majority is Ephraim, 88.4%. The next biggest slice is Manasseh at 5.6. Although this would probably look different if I was doing this poll in like Latin America or in maybe Eastern Europe or other places. So you have this, right? I'll put a link for this in the description box below in case you want to check it out. But we do have all the tribes at this point. If everybody responded honestly, then I have all the tribes at this point. But going back to this, so Ephraim corresponding according to this little thing that I'm doing here, Ephraim corresponding with Utah. And then in the east, you have Judah. And it's not perfect, but in the east, that's where most of the Jews are in the United States. The 3 big places, if I remember right, are New York, Florida, and California. If you're a Jew, those are like the big Jewish places. But New York takes first place, and it's in the east. It's really interesting how it plays out. So we have that to think about, but let's go back to this Tammuz. So remember what time the meteor was seen at 11:17 a.m. So Tammuz, the 17th of Tammuz, which is one of the Hebrew months, Tammuz. The 17th of Tammuz is a Jewish fast day commemorating the breach of the walls of Jerusalem before the destruction of the Second Temple. It falls on the 17th day of the Hebrew month of Tammuz and marks the beginning of the 3-week mourning period leading up to Tisha B'Av. So Tisha B'Av in Judaism is seen as the day, like the anniversary of the destruction of Solomon's temple, the first temple, and also the Herodian or second temple. So it's another big fast day. It's the saddest day on the Hebrew calendar. It also commemorates other tragedies in Jewish history, like the Inquisition and stuff like that. So what are we talking about again? So there is a meteor over New York where you have lots of Jews, and you could see it as a sign to the United States. You could also see it as a sign to the Jews in the United States, or Judaism as a whole. Exactly 1 week before this, how was it worded? This period of mourning period. Okay, exactly a week before this mourning period starts on Tammuz, which commemorates the day that the walls were breached, leading up to the destruction of the Second Temple. And then, like we just read, 1, 2, 3 weeks later is Tisha B'Av, the day that they commemorate the destruction of those temples and other tragedies in Jewish history. So what's interesting is I have this spreadsheet called Signs Jewish Specific, where I'm keeping track of sign. At this point, I might have to have a separate spreadsheet for the Statue of Liberty if this rate keeps up. But I have this one that's Jewish specific signs. And when we're talking about Tisha B'Av, okay, so let's switch gears and let's think about Tisha B'Av. There's been really interesting things going on lately with that. So if we go back to July 23rd, 2018, which was President Nelson's first year as president of the church. In fact, I think this is my first, on my timeline, this is my first event. You had stones that fell from the Kotel, or in other words, the Western Wailing Wall, which narrowly missed a Jewish woman that was praying at the wall. Now, it's not at that part that you typically think of when you think of the Western Wall. There's a part of it if you go further to the right. So to the far left, you have the portion that's for men. And then to the left, so to the far left, men. And then if you move to the right, women. But then if you go further to the right, they have a section where men and women can go to the wall together, but it's like, it's almost like it's a section for like conservative Jews or Reform Jews that don't really hold to that tradition that men and women should be separated. So they have like their own little section. And it was over there that there was a woman that was praying, and this huge stone fell. And it fell the day after Tisha B'Av. So again, Tisha B'Av, you have this imagery of the destruction of the temples. And here you have the Temple Mount where the temple stood. And you have a stone that fell a day after the day that commemorates the destruction of the temples. And it was a miracle that she wasn't hurt. That's why it made the news. This is Jerusalem Post. Okay, so Tisha B'Av there. Move forward a couple of years. There were foxes seen on the Temple Mount on the 7th of August of 2021. I'm not going to go into all the details, but in Judaism, the way that they read the scriptures, there's a part where it talks about jackals, or in other words, foxes, on the Temple Mount, and taking a couple different scriptures together, they view it as a sign that the third temple is going to be built soon. Okay, so they look at these couple scriptures. I'm not going to read them. that have to do with foxes, and that it's a sign that the third temple will be built soon. Foxes are not typically seen in this area because it's a populated area, so it's a rare occurrence. That's why it's making news. And what's interesting is that this first sighting took place during the 9-day austerity period leading up to Tisha B'Av. So as Jews are getting ready to commemorate that day, sadness, remembering the destruction of the temples, they see this really hopeful sign that has to do with the third temple. So for the foxes to show up during that time, for them, it's kind of a big deal. Well, that wasn't the only time. If we move forward to the 17th of January, 2023, there was another set of foxes seen at the Temple Mount. And then finally, so those first two are reported by Israel 365 News. You can come to my spreadsheets, and you know what? I'll pull it up. And then I'll put a link in the description box below in case you want to see this for yourself. I'll pull up these 3 stories. Here we go, Jerusalem Post. Okay, so then the third sighting of foxes on the Temple Mount. This time, on the third time, it was on Tisha B'Av. So it's almost like the intensity of these signs, they just kind of like increase and get more on the nose, right? So Tisha B'Av, stone falling from the western wall, foxes showing up on the Temple Mount, and not just at any old time, but the first time and the last time during the period of Tisha B'Av, and the last time on Tisha B'Av. And now we have this bright daytime meteor that passes over the Statue of Liberty in New York, one of the biggest centers for Jews in the United States, exactly 1 week before Tzom Tammuz, the breaching of the walls of Jerusalem in the lead up to the destruction of the Second Temple on Tisha B'Av. Okay? So you may not agree with this, and that's fine. I respect whatever your beliefs are. Just if you disagree, please be kind. Always be kind. Be kind to me. Be kind to other people in the comments or other YouTubers. Be a disciple of Christ. It's okay if we disagree. But these are just crazy things that are going on. To me, it's just crazy. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.